How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. Today we are looking at the crypto market, why it's down, what's going to happen next, what's happening in the traditional market, because there's a lot of correlation right now between Bitcoin and the NASDAQ. And then look at what's happening next week that could send us either up or down. And we'll talk about both of those scenarios. And I will tell you what I'm doing. If you guys don't mind, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I really appreciate that. It helps out the channel a lot. It just shows some support. I've been getting a lot of comments both ways, supportive and some pretty terrible comments here over the last few days. It definitely gets interesting when people start losing money in the market. Now, I'm not trying to show anything because the markets are down, but I will talk about how this is super beneficial later in the video. There's a link to Choice app underneath the video. You can start trading in a tax advantaged account and you get money when you start depositing. So again, I'll talk about it more later, but I want to bring this up in case you jump out of the video before then. As you can see, the market is bloody red today. A lot of crypto's down 10, 20% on the day. And it's funny, and I know this is what people bring up a lot, especially I think influencers. When the market's down, we always talk about how much people wanted the market to be down a couple months ago, and now it is, and now no one wants it. It's interesting. It all depends on whether you're accumulating or whether you are just trying to become rich and you already put all your money in. It's why I always talk about having some money on the sidelines, because even if you don't put it in, it still makes your head a little bit clearer when we do dip a little bit. So let's take a look at the market. First of all, we do have a good amount of liquidations. I mean, just over the last day, we had about 570 million longs liquidated. And this is actually just yesterday, 570. So we had more, obviously, since this morning. And then we also had about 100 million of shorts liquidated. We still have a ton of leverage in the market. I mean, this is from a few days ago now. This is right before we dropped a little bit. But even here at 40,700, we still had pretty much a high for leverage ratio. So there's still a lot of leverage in the market. Now, there are three different reasons for this. This is coming from Cointelegraph, but I think this is the main one. U.S. Fed inflation fears. There's a lot of people that are worried that we're going to start raising rates, that the Fed meeting next week is going to come out very hawkish instead of dovish, meaning they're going to start raising rates pretty soon. They're going to taper fast. They're trying to get the economy back on track in terms of making sure that we don't have rampant inflation as much as we do right now. Now, I think there's a possibility that we don't see rates raise as much as we think, which I'll talk about here in a moment, and that could be really good for the stock market and crypto. But a couple other things that could be happening. First of all, Bitcoin's growing correlation with Wall Street. We know that the NASDAQ and Bitcoin have been really closely tied, especially recently. Then also Russia's talked about a blanket ban on crypto, which they've been talking about this back and forth. It's kind of like China. I think they're trying to change the narrative every couple months, it seems like. Now, we're not just seeing red in crypto, we're also seeing it in stocks, obviously, with the NASDAQ down another 1.5%, S&P down 1%. We're seeing it all throughout growth stocks, especially. I mean, a lot of growth stocks down 5, 6, 7, 10% today. I mean, look at some of these. Matterport down about 67% since just a few weeks ago. I mean, they are going to build out the metaverse with Facebook. They're down significantly, almost back at their SPAC price. We have Netflix that reported earnings growth and beats, I believe, too, but a little bit less forward guidance, or a little bit lower forward guidance than what people thought. They're down 42% from their high just a few weeks ago. Also, Coinbase is at record lows in the 100 range now, not over 200. It's down 45% from just a few weeks ago. Even Amazon is down a full 20% since a couple weeks ago, since mid to late November. And I think this is all showing that, hey, obviously crypto's down, stocks are down too. It's not like crypto's being destroyed and stocks are doing great anymore. It's a red market overall because people are so worried about the Fed. The Fed. That's what everyone's talking about. But I will say there are a couple things that could be positive. So first of all, we have that meeting next week. Everyone's going to be watching it. There might be some red running into it. We might see some red over the weekend. We had a big options expiration today for Bitcoin. But we have had some negative news recently. And I think this is what people are really worried about. This is why we're seeing such a big drop. It's not just the Fed raising rates, because we've known that for a long time. There's also negative economic data coming in. So jobless claims jumping. We also have a ton of people out with COVID. We have kind of some not great earnings. I mean, like Netflix talking about how they're not going to get as many subscribers. So far, a lot of people are worried. Even if you look at search trends, that a lot of companies just aren't selling as much as they were a couple months ago or even a year ago. So what I think people are really worried about now is that we're going to go into the R word, a recession. I think a lot of people are worried that all this is negative. All these economic indicators are negative. And we also have the Fed talk about raising rates, which is the interesting thing, because if they see all this happening, they see the stock market falling down, 10, 20% on some of these top names, even before earnings, I'm thinking they're going to pause for a second and wonder, should we really raise rates? Because they don't want to send us into a depression. They don't want to send us into a recession. If growth really comes in low, especially because we do have GDP coming here soon. So we have the Federal Reserve next week. We also have the fourth quarter GDP and personal consumption expenditure inflation data coming too. If those come in low and the Fed raises rates, there's going to be a huge tantrum in the market. Everyone's going to be worried, even more than now, which is, I think, where we could see bottom pricing, if that's the case. Now, we could keep on falling, of course, but I wouldn't be surprised either if they kind of took a step back, so that maybe we won't raise rates as quickly as people thought, or maybe we won't taper as significantly because of what's happening in the market and in economic data. Of course, we're going to see more inflation then. That's why I think you do have to be invested. Of course, if we have a crystal ball and we know what's going to happen moving forward, we won't be invested and go through the downs, but we don't have that, right? If everything was perfect, we would invest right at the very bottom, which means we wouldn't have been investing at all like the last 6 months in crypto and like the last 6 months in the stock market. But that's not how it works. So we could see a little bit of a turn on crypto, especially if we see the Fed being a little bit more dovish than hawkish. And right now we are seeing a lot of fear, right? A couple weeks ago, we were at a 10 for fear and greed index. Now we're at right around a 19. And I think this is a little bit high. I think it's going to come in lower today because we're at record low prices for the last couple months. But I think we are seeing a lot of fear in the market. I mean, it seems very different than even where it was at the beginning of the month. We're at 38K instead of 40. A lot of altcoins are down significantly, and it's just not looking very positive overall. But you have to remember the fundamentals are still really good. We have new companies entering the metaverse all the time, entering crypto in certain ways like payment processing. It's just that we are seeing a lot of fear due to the Fed and due to economic indicators. So I think that this is one of those times where it's hard to remember that we wanted to buy the dip, but I think a lot of people don't think about when we want to buy the dip in the future, they don't think about what could cause a dip, right? They think, oh, I wish it would dip 50%, but everything was still great, and then we'd pop right back up. That's not how it works. There has to be fear. There have to be reasons why we're falling, and we're there. We've had reasons why we're falling, and that's where we are today. So that's why I always talk about having some money on the sidelines. That's why I have so much in Anchor Protocol. So I've talked about this a lot over the last month. I talk about putting money in something like in some of the stable coins on some of the platforms that pay you a good amount. And I think that's really important. Now, another really high IQ play, and I'll tell you what I'm doing here in a second, but another really high IQ play would be going with something like Choice app. And they are a partner of the channel, but they allow you to invest in some of these cryptos in tax advantage accounts. And that's what I do with some of my crypto too. I try to buy crypto related stocks, but here you can actually buy specific cryptos. They have a good variety of different kinds of cryptos that you can buy in here. And the cool thing is, if we see a little bit of a bounce, even if it's 10, 20, 30%, or if we see a market rally and the Fed says, hey, we're not actually going to raise rates that much, maybe we'll raise rates once or twice this year, and we see a huge surge in the crypto market, you don't have to hold on to it in Choice app. You could sell it. You could sell it and then you wouldn't have those taxable events. That's something that I am always paying attention to because I know that I will get hit hard on taxes if I have any kind of a gain. So you can use the link underneath the video. You get, I believe, $50 when you start funding your account here, but I think it's definitely worth checking out, especially with where we are now. This is where the big gains are made when we're low, and then you can sell and not have to worry about taxes. So definitely check out that link, but I'll tell you what I'm doing here today. I bought a couple options. First of all, one on Matterport. So Matterport, I think, is a stock that's going to do really well over the coming years. I wouldn't be surprised if it fell a little bit more here soon. It's been up as high as $37 recently. It doesn't even show on this chart, but now it's down so much from there. I wouldn't be surprised if it fell a little bit more just because they do have earnings. They almost fall down every single time that they have earnings. But the fact is, they're growing super quickly. So I think they're close to a 20 price to sales ratio right now. And they are a tech company, a software company that's growing pretty significantly. The last quarter, I think they actually fell a little bit in revenue, but I think over long term, especially because they are going to help Facebook build out their ecosystem, and Facebook spending $10 billion a year on the metaverse, I think some of that's going to be going to Matterport, and that would make a significant difference, even if it was just a small fraction. If they got 1% of that $10 billion, it would almost double their revenue at this point. So I think that they will be a huge player in the years to come. And I talked to someone recently that has invested in businesses similar to Matterport, and Matterport, he said, was the way to go if you want something that's easy to use and you're not trying to scale up a lot. There are cheaper alternatives if you have a company that you're trying to scale up very quickly, but Facebook is already working with Matterport, and Matterport's really the way to go if you're looking at a small scale because they make it really easy. So I am looking at Matterport. I bought some multi-year call options on them. I also bought some call options on Palantir stock. So Palantir is another one that's just been beaten down. It's down about 67% or so too. This is another company that has just been beaten down, and they are growing very quickly. They're talking about 30 to 40% a year for the coming years. They already are cash flow positive, and I think it will continue to grow at a very fast rate, gaining more and more clients, and it's a retail favorite. It's something that a lot of people want in their portfolios. It's just a question of whether the timing makes sense for some of the big money to get into it. Now, I also have been buying more crypto. I did buy some GBTC and ETH and MSTR recently because I do think that those are good crypto proxies, but I have been buying more. Now, I still have a good amount of cash on the sidelines. I'm getting to the point, or at least I'm trying to wait for the point, where it feels so stupid not to put more money in that I take some out of my reserves. And I have been doing that a little bit with some bigger nibbles, but I'm not going balls to the wall on this yet. I am waiting for a little bit more pain. And of course, there's always a risk reward with that. If we bounce tomorrow, I will be kicking myself that I didn't put even more money in. But I do really like the comfort that I get from getting so much money from stablecoin, right? Like this is a significant amount, $18,000 a year. So if I need to break into the piggy bank just because the deals are too good, I will do that. But I continue to dollar cost average with some other money that I have been sitting on the sidelines with. Now I want to leave you with this thought. If you're looking for the best way to get wealthy, not by next month, not by next year, but in a few years, I still think crypto is the way to do it. And unlike the traditional finance people, the people that have the majority of the money, we don't have to worry about timing it right this week or this month or this year. A lot of them are protecting the downside. They're not necessarily looking for the upside. They're not caring what's going to happen next year or over the rest of the year. They are really focused in the short term, which is fine. That's their job. But that also stops them from performing as well as people that are invested for long term. I mean, we've seen that. They barely ever beat the S&P 500. Crypto outperformed vastly last year. And that's one thing that we have over the big money guys. We don't have to worry about the short term, so we don't have to make stupid decisions in the short term. Of course, if we can pick out the highs and lows perfectly, that's great, but we can't do that. So that's where I think you buy when you can with what you're comfortable with. You think long term, because if Bitcoin gets up to where it was earlier, just a couple months ago, it's a nice 70 or 75% return, whatever it is. Some of these smaller altcoins, if you believe in them, they get back to all-time highs. They're up 2x, 3x, 4x. And I think very strongly that a couple of years from now, we will be much higher than where we are today. So just something to consider. I think a lot of people always think that big money is in the lead and they're at an advantage, and they are in some ways. But remember, they are trying to get profit short term at the expense of really looking long term, which is why they haven't been getting into crypto over the last couple of years, because it's been too volatile. So just something to consider. Now, I would definitely check out the link underneath the video to Choice. Like I said, you can invest and not have to worry about taxes as much. Also, there are some links in case you want to join the Patreon and know exactly when I buy and sell and kind of my views on the market. There is a link to that underneath the video. Thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for hitting the like button and subscribe button. Let me know how you are doing down below in the comment section, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.